that, we'd like to begin with our panel on interpreting the backlash and building on progress, which is section F on the program. Can you all see that? Okay, super. So we have on the panel 5 colleagues who are doing activism in various ways, and I'm going to try and ask them the questions based on the hopes and expectations that we raised in the morning. And I'm going to start with Smilo, who's a Catholic priest and former spokesperson of the South African Catholic Bishops' Conference. And Smilo, I'm going to ask you, is the church listening? Is the church listening?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. First of all, I'm here to listen. That is one of the things, even the groups have been listening. But as was said before, the church has different levels. At some level, the church is listening. At some level, the church is not listening. But there's a progress on the listening side of the church, if I may say so.
All right. What is the problem on the listening side of the church?
Well, it's very difficult, as that has been said before, to speak of all churches because there are different traditions. But religion in itself, maybe let's talk religion. Religion by itself is an institution that sets certain principles, sets certain value systems. But after some time, as it develops, the institution becomes more important than the charism and the values, and the self-preservation of the religion becomes more important. So that creates that dynamic that when new voices are coming up, then the institutional church becomes reluctant or even rigid and refuse to listen. But at any given moment, there are always ears in the church, albeit a few.
Thank you very much for your honesty and candidness. But we're going to see if Yvonne from the Gay and Lesbian Coalition of Kenya can offer us her perspective on what's been happening in Kenya. In your view, Yvonne, is the church listening?
In my view, the church is listening, and especially in my context, they're listening, but for all the wrong reasons, because they're listening to counter. And for a long time in my activism and in the activism for sexual orientation and gender identity and expression issues, we found that the church earlier, let's say 2012, 2014, they were not as strategic, they were not as well funded, they were not as vicious as they are right now. So they've been listening to us, they've been hearing what we are saying, and now they're countering it. So if you look at the church, the narrative around the cream in Kenya, how the church was organized was very strategic. Like they were very funded. They followed us and they had a counter to every argument that we had. They were holding forums, they were holding social media campaigns, they had advocacy tools, they had spokespeople. So they've clearly been listening to us. The question is, for why? So I think that it's all for their benefit and not for the communities. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. So we'll come back to you, Bishop. You're listening, but for the wrong reasons. What is your perspective on what Yvonne has had to say?
As I said earlier, when we are talking about church and religion, we are talking about a very wide spectrum of communities which have many different emphasis. For example, it has been said in this convening that there is a funding that comes from America for a certain portion of the church. Definitely my church is not getting any funding to counteract any LGBTI and many other mainline communities. It's more Pentecostal evangelistic communities that are running that. So I will emphasize again, Even within my mainline tradition, yes, it is true, there are people who are listening for wrong reasons, but there are people who are not. So we cannot, in other words, put everyone in the same basket in a way. But as I've explained earlier, the nature of religion is it develops from a charism, from a spirituality, and because it is an institution, the institution becomes more important than the charism. And once the institution sociologically becomes more important, the tendency is to self-preserve. That's where the challenge. We also within the church are challenging that. Are we to evangelize, go out and go to the boundaries, go to the peripheries, meet everyone, or are we going to preserve the institution? So historically, unfortunately, the media and every publicity that we get is more of self-preservation, and those few as we are who are talking about encounters, transformative encounters as the theme of this conference is, get less and less publicity.
Thank you very much. Sia Kumalo, you're the author of You Have to Be Gay to Know God. What drove you to write this book?
Good afternoon, everybody. What drove me to write this book was I noticed an increase in the number of hate crimes around 2013, 2014. So I was seeing gay bashings, what some people would call corrective rape, where people are raped with the idea that their sexual orientation will be changed. I was seeing a lot of these crimes, and I went online to social media thinking I would see my Christian friends denouncing these crimes, saying that they were wrong. Instead, what I noticed was that they were having debates about whether being gay is a sin or not. And I thought to myself, with these incidences happening, if this is the discussion we're seeing, there is something very, very wrong with the theology that people are consuming in their churches. It has made them callous. It has made them, basically they're looking after the coats of those who are doing the stoning and the killing, which is a biblical idea. So I started interrogating some of my own beliefs about the Bible, about my sexuality, about society. And I distilled my findings in a book that is part memoir, but also in like an autobiography, but part of it is socio-political analysis on why this kind of thing happens around us.
And in your view, based on your book, why is the church a site of hate rather than a place of love?
Well, Smilo touched on a lot of it. So the church is an institution, and it at some level needs to self-preserve. It needs to look after its own interests. And the business of religion is the business of selling moral ideas. When you go to church, you go there for 30 minutes. You don't go for a 4-year degree. Although there are some churches where they can go on and on. But when you go in there, the pastor has 30 to 40 or 5 hours in some instances to get you to buy into their vision of what society should look like morally, but also to part with your money. And yes, they need to get you to part with your money. And they're not going to do that unless they give a call to action that is compelling enough. And a call to action can often be, let us all be scared of those people over there who are changing the moral fiber of society. Sometimes that's the call to action, and that's how religious institutions end up preserving themselves, by throwing somebody under the bus, by scapegoating somebody, by making somebody out to be wrong so that they may be seen as the savior.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sosi, from Nigeria, you've set up an organization called Changing Attitudes. How are you leading in changing attitudes in Nigeria?
Yeah, so basically what we're trying to do is engage various stakeholders. And when I talk about stakeholders, those people that we're not just looking at the LGBTQI persons, but we're looking at those people that we think will propel change. So we're trying to create a discourse around LGBTQI issues by engaging them. So we engage religious leaders, we engage lawyers, we also engage, other NGOs and CSOs that share the same visions with us to create a dialogue on how to work around these issues.
And what results are you yielding from the engagement?
Well, currently, to be very honest, it's difficult because
of the SSMPA, that's the Same Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, that criminalizes same-sex relationship. If you examine that act, you would also see gatherings like this can't take place legitimately in Nigeria. We can get 10 years in prison. So it makes gathering very difficult. People are very skeptical when you try to engage them on these issues. And because of the very hostile environment, when you talk to them, change is very slow. But, on the brighter side, there's a dialogue. And so there's a discourse, like I said, around these issues. So there's small, change is taking place, small, in bits and pieces.
Thank you very much. And Brian, from the Center for Solutions Journalism, could you tell us how we can build better solutions to the challenges that we're facing with the backlash against LGBTI people?
The starting point in building solutions is to engage in conversations. We should discuss these issues openly with all the key stakeholders, even including those people who oppose and harass issues. Let me say that you cannot attain the goals of any revolution without facing resistance. Change comes after fighting and breaking resistance. So if we are fighting for equality, social justice, we must know that on the way we will face hurdles and some challenges. But when we face those challenges, it's important that we engage in conversations. This is why, as part of finding solutions to some of the existing challenges, we even need to engage religious leaders, and where we need to fight, we can fight. Where we need to discuss, we should discuss. In our institution, we mostly use the media to facilitate the desired change, to break homophobia. That's what we are doing. But first of all, we need to have those conversations. There's something that one of the churches in Malawi did. They conducted their own research on the issue of LGBTI, and the outcome, actually, they wanted to find the grounds that they would use to be opposing. But the outcome is that the leading researcher ended up writing a book that Malawi should actually decriminalize its draconian laws. But all that started because we had those conversations, and we are debating about it. As the outcome of the debate in the scenario of Malawi, we even had the suspension of the draconian, the old laws. But although the problem in Malawi is that we are making 2 steps forward, then take another step back. Because just 2 years ago, we have, Malawi has enacted what is called Marriage Act. And in that Marriage Act, there are also some provisions which we are not comfortable with.
What are those provisions that you're uncomfortable with?
One of the provisions is that it doesn't recognize same-sex relationships and unions. The provision specifically says that marriage is is the relationship between a man and a woman, or people of opposite sex. But that's something that we are fighting through various forums in Malawi.
Thank you very much. Yvonne, if we could turn back to you and the recent court case in Kenya. Where do you think the revolution in Kenya is going next?
I'm skeptical about talking about the revolution or what you're planning, because most of the time, like I said, people are listening, right? So if it's a strategy, if you talk about it, is it still a strategy, or is it just like public information? But then I could filter it out and say that personally, I think it's important to have, to engage with people of faith. I personally think that it's important to provide comfortable and feel that they're still welcome. So on that basis, I think it's very important, and I'm happy that there are organizations in my country that work very closely with religious leaders, with different people of faith, with all these churches and ministries and stuff, and I think it's really important. But on the same breath, I think that considering we've been doing this work for 10 years now with my organization, the returns do not match the work that goes into it. I feel like we are subjected to doing so much work and we get very little in return from it. So I think the revolution, in my opinion, is young, is unafraid, is resilient, and we are looking towards a Kenya that is free from like colonial views of what spirituality should look like. And I've seen a lot of young people in my country now trying to go back to spirituality as opposed to religious entities, right? Like connecting to God in new and freeing ways, as opposed to ways that continues to discriminate and violate our communities. So to me, in regards to this conversation about breaking through the backlash, I see the revolution focusing more on queer people that are freed from the chains of colonization, and religious bodies and churches and religious ways that continue to chain us to those roots, because it is really difficult for me to see a revolution that is queer-led, that is affirming of queerness, and still rooted in colonization. It's really difficult for me.
Thank you very much. So, Sia, we want to ask you, if the church remains where it is on LGBTI rights, LGBTI people, will there be a future for the church in Africa?
I would like, no. My answer is no on that, because right now things are changing. It might be slow, but things are changing. So from the Nigerian perspective, it's important from them to take heed from progressive-minded countries like South Africa. I know they are not there yet, but yes, because the church, what they do is stifle the rights of LGBTQI persons and encourage people to infringe on their fundamental human rights. And we all know that one of the first universal declaration is everybody is entitled to enjoy their rights regardless of who they are and how they identify. So if the church continues this way, I feel like eventually they would not have a place, in churches in Africa.
Thank you very much. Sia, would you like to contribute to that?
Yes, I would. So one of the points that came up was with regards to Zimbabwe and the economic situation, that we cannot look at gender and sexuality issues because we've got this economic situation. And what I believe is discrimination, oppression, and marginalization looks different when it happens to different sizes of groups of people. When you allow oppression to affect one group of people, they look like a targeted minority, and they become the bad guys, which is what the mechanism of scapegoating is about. But when you allow it to happen to a small group of people, it eventually expands and it happens to more and more people, and then it eventually looks like everybody having an economic problem. It started small with one group, it grew to a tribe, it grew to a gender group, it grew to a marginalized community or another. Eventually it affected everyone. So if the church does not speak up for justice, it's not that there won't be a church left in Africa, it's that there won't be an Africa. We cannot continue demonizing one another and continue and expect that it won't spread. If you make your neighbor sick, that disease is going to spread to everyone, and then we're all dead. So it's not that there won't be a church, it's that Africa cannot survive if it cannibalizes itself the way it's doing. But I wonder what it's like to be a church in Zimbabwe right now. I wonder what it's like to be a church in South Africa, in pockets of South Africa when there's load shedding or when there's water restrictions. Because that's what oppression looks like when it takes on just another manifestation. But when we allow it to happen, as we do in South Africa, to foreign nationals, we tolerate xenophobia, we eventually tolerate a problem that in some, just given enough time, will affect different people differently. So that's my opinion on that.
Thank you. So, Smilo, there we are. How do we build bridges with each other?
Yes, convenings like these, thanks to all those who put this together, should be continuing. Let us continue talking and creating relationships. Let's take it like if you want to create a relationship with a company, a certain company, you'll first talk to those people who have an ear for you. And I feel that either we who have an ear for the LGBTI issues have not maybe advertised ourselves well. I mean, from the side of the church, or we are not known. I don't know. Maybe we need to do a little bit more from that side. But also, I think fundamentally we need to make some choices here. Nobody needs to belong to any religion. Strange for me to say as a religious man. You can live without a religion. It's not a problem. You don't have to. But if you have to, then let's talk about it when you are within a certain religion. But having said that, also, I think in one of the breakaway groups I was in, they did mention that in some countries, maybe not so much in South Africa, religion or churches have a great influence on government policy. So then that means if you want to change government policy at some stage, you must engage the churches in that regard. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying, there are some of us who are listening. For those who are interested in being religious, being Christian or Islam, or Muslim or whatever, and still being LGBTI, there are people who are listening to that, and maybe we need to make a bigger move to advertise ourselves and be available, as I've tried today, this week, to be here.
Thank you. Brian, how do we get more progress in Malawi?
We will get more progress through engagement with key stakeholders. Just a week ago, we have new MPs. We met them and presented our issues to them, and they were happy. Fortunately, we have engaged some religious leaders who also made the presentations. There was a Catholic priest, there was an evangelical reverend there. So through engagement with key stakeholders, we will be making progress. Yes, the church will continue resisting, but that shouldn't stop us. As a matter of fact, some of us ask ourselves difficult questions. Who created who? Aren't some religious creating their own gods these days? I mean, we reach that extent because of the actions of the church. Because we understand that God is full of compassion, God is full of love. And where is this hatred coming from? Where is this homophobia coming from? So we believe in order to make progress, we will engage the churches. They are progressive ones like the bishop here. And we will continue engaging other stakeholders. And another thing is that we are also willing to learn from others. The landmark strategic litigation that has happened to Botswana, where the court has overhauled the colonial laws, is something that we are learning and asking ourselves. Should we follow that route, or should we follow the route of taking the laws to parliament? So there are a number of lessons that we are learning to make progress.
Thank you very much. Yvonne, I'd like you to round it off. How do we get progress? Is strategic litigation enough? We've seen that in Kenya, it wasn't enough. We saw that the courts, the judges, were very judgmental, actually. And the judges who were meant to provide justice delivered injustice, actually. So how do we move forward from this gridlock?
Is strategic litigation the only way to seek for for the freedoms of queer people in Africa? I think not. Um, Even in Kenya, where we were going through litigation, we also had other things in place. We'd put together a communication strategy, we'd put together a security strategy that continues to operate even now, that security incidents have definitely gone up. We put in place an advocacy strategy, so we had different people focusing on different things. So people who, for example, engage with religious leaders continue to do that work, it doesn't stop. People who were doing health and HIV work, that continues, it doesn't stop. But then litigation was one of the ways to get to where we wanted faster, in my opinion. It's really sad that the judiciary in Kenya is no longer independent and is influenced, and we knew this. We knew this even during our litigation process, that they were being influenced politically. They're influenced by religion in our countries, and we had statements like of people saying that that decree will not be their legacy, their political legacy, and they would do anything to make sure it didn't happen during their tenure, which is really sad. But what this litigation process did for our country is it brought the conversation about queerness to the public eye, because for a very long time, even now, queerness in Kenya is censored. For example, queer media is not shown, queer films are banned in my country, queer music, music about queerness, for example, by a gay man, the videos are banned, they're not shown, they're not aired. If a cartoon has a queer character, it's pulled down from DSTV in my country. So it's like queer people don't exist. That has been a narrative for a very long time in my country. But with this litigation, we were in their faces. We came out in court, like they were so shocked. Like the first day they were like, these queers are so afraid, like they've scared us into our closets, right? But during the mention, you saw queers. Like if you watch the news, people were in court, people were wearing matching outfits, we were looking dapper, we were there, and we're like, we are queer, we are Kenyans, and we are here. So even if we did not get a decree in this first try, this litigation process did a lot for my country. And now this is a conversation that is had everywhere, in churches, in schools, it's called where the politicians meet, parliament. So it's a discourse, and it was part of our communication strategy, because I'm not sure if you noticed, but the narrative was by Kenyans. It was queer Kenyans telling queer stories. We were not relying on other people to write our own stories. We were doing our own interviews. We were doing our own articles. And this has been a very great thing for the queer movement in Kenya. Of course, we're appealing. Of course, we're taking this to the highest level, like the farthest we could. But the process is something that other contexts should learn from.
Thank you for sharing, Yvonne. Can I close the panel? All right. Virginia, thank you. Thank you, Neville, for this. I couldn't see you there. Virginia has a small gift from the other foundation and participants for each one of you to say thank you for being on the panel. We appreciate everything that you are doing. It seems strange to thank you for being brave and courageous and fierce when you haven't been given a choice with your life to be anything else. But thank you very much for being that. Let's give them a huge round of applause. Our comrades take great risks to be on panels like this, panels that are going to be public and panels that are going to be well known, particularly when they come from countries where judges and the church are pointing guns at LGBTI activists. So we're grateful for that.
Amen.